Hey people, today is Saturday the 1st of March. It is 3:45 p.m. and a quite frigid feeling, minus 8 degrees Celsius. Feeling more like minus 17 with the wind chill. I'm on Bloor Street West here in the Annex neighborhood, and I'm heading west. And I'm going to continue west here along Bloor until I get to Palmerston Boulevard. And then I'm going to take a walk south down Palmerston Boulevard, which is one of the most beautiful, it's okay, one of the most beautiful residential streets in this part of the city, I would say. I thought I'd start out the walk on a busy commercial strip here. We'll walk through what's left of the Annex and then a little bit of Koreatown before we come upon Palmerston Boulevard. And once we get there, you'll see why the street is a bit unique in this part of the city. The street being Palmerston, not here on Bloor. Across Bathurst. .511 Bathurst, heading south. And that used to be Honest Ed's Kitty Corner. But the pizza is still here on this corner. That's the pizza location that was made famous in the Scott Pilgrim comic book series and also in the movie. Because at that time, Honest Ed's played a role in that story. So this is coming into Koreatown now that we've crossed Bathurst. And the sun is coming out, which makes it feel a tad bit warmer. There's Markham Street. I'm looking forward to the return of Mervish Village once this development is complete. Mervish Village is a neat little strip of shops, restaurants, and galleries on that block of Markham Street. But when the Honest Ed's redevelopment took place, Mervish Village went along with it. But it will be coming back in a slightly different form. Maybe by later this year, that would be nice. Snakes and lattes. It's funny, it's listed as the Annex location when it's not actually in the Annex. Close enough, I guess. We're firmly in Koreatown here. And here we are at Palmerston. Didn't take very long. So Palmerston does extend northward up that way. Let's Palmerston Avenue, north of Bloor. But south of Bloor, it's referred to as Palmerston Boulevard. Because I guess it's a bit too fancy just to be a regular old avenue. That's the only explanation I can think of as to why it changes names. And then further south, I think it just becomes Palmerston Street once we pass through the fancy area. There's a look towards the Yonge and Bloor off in the distance. Alright, so I guess the rest of Koreatown will have to come in a later walk I do. It is an interesting stretch. Let me straighten out the camera. There we go. So all of the houses here are rather large, detached houses, which makes this street a bit unique. Most of the parallel streets on either side, the houses are much smaller, and oftentimes they're attached houses. Semi-detached are row houses. So this street was sort of built to be a bit on the upscale side. We do have like some semi-detached houses here though. I think in Toronto you can't really find any street that doesn't have at least a few of those, even in Rosedale. And there are also a few very nice walk-up apartment buildings here along Palmerston. And these lampposts are sort of the recognizable hallmark of this stretch here. That's referred to as Boulevard. They date back, I think, to the late 19th or early 20th century. See, this is a very nice old apartment building here. And there's also a well-used bike lane. Maybe not so well used at the moment here. We love ringette. That's an interesting little factoid for you. Ringette, I believe, was invented in my hometown of North Bay. So the houses here are in the millions, especially if you're buying a fully detached house, such as this behemoth right here. It's not quite on the level of Rosedale in terms of its cost per house, but in this part of the city, it's definitely a bit of a standout. On some of the other side streets where you do have denser attached housing, you're still paying at least close to $2 million for a house. So these ones are no doubt 4 or 5 million, I would say. There's a cat crossing my path. And my sister used to live on this street in one of the old walk-up apartment buildings a bit further south. And that was before I lived in Toronto. So when I would come to visit, that was one of the things that made me sort of fall in love with this street. I think it is referred to as Palmerston Boulevard as far south as College Street. And then it reverts to just plain old Palmerston Street. Not quite as fancy. It's much denser south of College with more of that attached row housing that you see in most of this part of the city. Here's an awesome old apartment building. I recently did a walk in Rosedale, where the houses are definitely an order of magnitude a bit larger than these ones. But Rosedale doesn't have these awesome old lampposts. At night when they're all lit up, it adds a lot of ambiance to the street. Is that an apartment building or a house? And lots of big mature trees also. In the summertime it's very much a tunnel of green as you're walking down here. A lot of the tree branches extend right over the street. Here is Harvard Street. The sun is definitely making things feel a bit warmer now. Maybe instead of -8, it feels a bit more like -7. That's probably about the best it can do right now. As long as the wind isn't blowing, it's actually a pretty nice day to take a walk, really, if you don't mind a bit of a nip in the air. Harvard Street looks like it's complete traffic chaos right now. I know there's a subway closure this weekend on line 1. So there does seem to be a bit of congestion in certain parts of the city that might be contributing to. This one sort of stands out. I like that uppermost level. Looks like this car has never been moved since we got the big snowstorm 2 weeks ago. was probably almost completely buried after the storm. To still have that much snow on it now. You can see though how the houses are still quite closely spaced together here, even if they are mostly detached houses. In the old parts of Toronto, they really pack the houses in. Even in upscale neighborhoods, such as Rosedale and Forest Hill, the houses are very close together. And once we get south of College Street, I'll probably continue along Palmerston. You'll see how the street changes. This one looks massive when you see how far it extends. So we're not too far away from the core of downtown where all the tall buildings are. This is a gigantic semi-detached here. So it reminds me a little bit of Rosedale, where I saw some semi-detached mansions. Yeah, there really isn't another street quite like this in the whole west end of Old Toronto that I can think of. Surprisingly enough, on the east side of downtown, there is a street that was built in a similar fashion with detached homes, whereas most other streets are full of attached housing. And that's actually the street that I live on, but it's not nearly as grand and lengthy as Palmerston. It's only really one block. And there is a fair amount of attached housing sprinkled in there. And apartment buildings, and I happen to live in one of the apartment buildings on the street. But as the years went by, my street sort of ended up on the wrong side of the tracks, you could say. And even though it was originally built to be an upscale, wealthy street, over time a lot of those big houses became rooming houses and things of that nature. And it's only been in the last 10 or 15 years that a lot of those old houses were converted back to a single residence after very expensive renovations. I don't think anything like that ever happened here on Palmerston. I think it's always maintained its upscale nature. I'm sure there are some of the old houses here that are subdivided into multiple units. And maybe in the past there were many more, but think it's always sort of had a reputation as a very upscale street of wealthy homeowners. And here's the apartment building that my sister used to live in. She lived on the top floor, if I'm remembering correctly. And the Frontenac. It's funny because around the time when she was living there, there was a TV show that I used to watch on CBC called Being Erica. Or it might have been right after she moved away, actually, to another nearby neighborhood, but I remember watching Being Erica and realizing that the main character, Erica, lived in this building also, and it was constantly shown on the show. That was a really good show. It's one of the shows where Toronto plays Toronto.
Ouais, mais ce serait pareil pour le mur en fait.
All right, we're almost through the Palmerston Boulevard stretch of the street. College Street is up ahead. I don't know if I showed them up at the Bloor Street side, but there are these gates that sort of let you know you're entering a special area, and they're here at the College Street side as well. I think I just didn't point them out at the beginning of the video. College Street. And you can see the gates, although that's missing one of its lamps. They should fix that. Welcome to Palmerston Boulevard. And once you cross College Street, you'll see how the neighborhood changes, or the character of the street becomes something different. Still a nice street. But it'll look much more typical of Toronto neighborhoods in this part of the city, so close to the core. So the bike lane still continues. But there you can see all of a sudden now we have these very dense Victorian row houses in the Bay and Gable style. That's Toronto's unique housing vernacular. So things all of a sudden get a lot denser. These are still very sought after homes, though. You're still paying a fortune to buy one of these homes, even if it is attached. Maybe just shave a couple $1 million off the price of one of the homes on that other stretch of Palmerston, and you could live in one of these. So this is much more of what you expect to see in a major city close to the core. If we're talking about low-rise residential streets. Old brick Victorians. Not much of a yard to speak of. These ones actually do have a bit of a front yard. Other streets in the area don't even have that. The houses pretty much front right onto the sidewalk.
And then I thought to myself, don't be stupid.
And I'm a huge fan of neighborhoods like this. I think if I had to live in a low-rise residential neighborhood in Toronto, it would be on a street like this. Maybe even one that's a slightly more dense. The ones where you have a front stoop that just goes down to the sidewalk. And you do see some of that stuff around here. I'm trying to remember how the street looks once you go south of Queen. I think it changes names south of Queen. It might become Tecumseh once you go south of Queen. And that's even older in that part of the city than where we are now. These are quite old though. These are Victorian era, as I mentioned. Late 19th or early 20th century. These ones definitely stand out. Looks like you have a new addition crammed in between those older ones. And here is Dundas Street. Another busy commercial street. And we had our first CN Tower sighting. So you can see close we are to the more well-known parts of the city. So I'll just cross Dundas as I continue walking south along Palmerston. I'll start to wrap up this walk. I hope you enjoyed the tour of Palmerston Boulevard. Although we started on Bloor Street in the Annex and made our way through a little bit of Koreatown before heading south down Palmerston Boulevard, admiring the beautiful homes and old apartments, and making our way south onto Palmerston Street just to see how the street changes as it slices southward through the west side of the city here. Leave a comment down below if you enjoyed. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And also be sure to hit that notification bell so that you don't miss any of my videos. And if you'd like to support the channel, there are links in the description where you can do so via PayPal, as well as via my merch store. Or you can also support the channel by becoming a channel member, or by sending a super thanks if you prefer. And you can find me on Instagram also under KContinuum. So thanks for watching, and thanks to all the channel members. And be sure to keep checking back, because as always, I will continue.